Hey there. Welcome to Lead Fearlessly, Strategies of Confident Women Leaders, the podcast that will empower you to unleash your inner strength and embrace leadership with confidence. I'm your host, Katie Winchenbach, and I'm excited to have you join us as we dive into the experiences of extraordinary women who've shattered glass ceilings and redefined success on their own terms. Get ready to be motivated, challenged, and equipped with the tools and strategies to lead fearlessly in your own life and career. I am so excited to welcome Erin O'Mara to the podcast today. Erin is a media CEO. She works for the Nation Fund for Independent Journalism as a strategic advisor. She has worked for The Nation. She has worked for TV Guide magazine, Forbes magazine. She has a really impressive resume in that media space. So I'm thrilled to have her here. Erin, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
To kick this off, I will have you briefly describe your journey for our audience. How did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, so some of it's by accident, but it's a happy accident. The first little moment in my career was realizing that a lot of the things that I thought were true about myself were not true. And I think that this is a really important point for people. So I went through high school thinking that I was terrible at math. I was just that math was just beyond me. And then my first real adult job was for Rolling Stone magazine in their subscription marketing department. And I discovered that not only was I good at math, but that I got it, that I discovered that numbers tell stories and they explain relationships and that I could read them like a novel. So I could be both creative and analytical, something that I really didn't know about myself. And that one didn't have to wipe out the other, and that I could use these skills to really help media that I care for so much. So I fell into that job and I thought, it'll pay my bills, it'll pay my rent while I figure out my next thing. And it really turned into the foundation for my whole career. And I didn't see that coming. And so there's really something important in that about being open to possibility. And so from there, I moved jobs through publishing and moved up the ranks. I always defined my roles really broadly and learned everything I could along the way. When I moved to TV Guide, I moved up the ranks in TV Guide until I became their vice president of consumer marketing and really had to navigate some turbulent times. I mean, you can imagine, people listening probably don't remember TV Guide on their coffee tables. Technology and times change. And so that required some honing management skills, which was really important. And when I was at TV Guide, I had the opportunity to take a job to be the first employee at a startup. And so the startup was to help media companies turn their businesses around. And so I got to step into this role where I was not only working with clients who needed help, they needed work on fundamentals and they needed help to create revenue streams, but I was also managing teams internally. And it was an extraordinary experience. And when I was doing that job, and I loved it, I got headhunted to join The Nation magazine as their president. So in 2016, I became the president of The Nation, best title ever, and stayed in that role for several years. And while I was there, I realized my ability to make an impact in the company didn't have to sit in traditional opportunities. And so I changed the company's structure. We created the Nation Fund for Independent Journalism, which rolled the educational initiatives that the nation has started into a new umbrella. and gave them, light and air that they needed. So, and then when we had the Nation Fund up and running, realized that what we really needed to do was lean into this mission to help train future journalists. And what we really, really needed to fix problems that we see is to create a deeper funnel, a deeper recruitment funnel for journalists. So to reach down into high school and to reach into communities that are historically underserved and the students in these communities might not have equal access to opportunity. And so we created the Fellowship for the Future of Journalism. And it's a fellowship focused on high school students. We start working with those students at the end of their sophomore year and work with them into their senior year. We launched with our first cohort 2 years ago. So we had 100% retention of those students into year 2. And we have worked on narrative pieces, editorials, straight reporting, investigative work. And those students will finish this program in March with a really deep understanding of what it takes to be a journalist and pieces that were published online and more experience for their resumes. And it's been a really extraordinary program to watch these students open up to this possibility that they wouldn't have had without this. And I'm really proud to say that we just got funding for a second cohort. So a foundation believes in what we're doing and has come in and with some monetary support to keep it going. So we're about to recruit our second cohort, which is really thrilling. And then while all this is happening, I'm in the process of creating a brand new startup that I hope to be able to tell you all about soon. But what I want to do is create a company that helps support and create sustainable local news in New England.
Wow. There's so many things that you're doing that are so incredible. One of the things that stood out to me the most is as you have this winding career and as you followed these new opportunities, how did you figure out what opportunities were right for you and which paths you wanted to follow?
Yeah, that's not always easy. I think it's really important to be looking for open doors, and that's active because they won't always stand out and you don't want to walk by them. I think it's good to experiment. It's good to, again, broadly define your job so that you have the opportunity to do the most learning that you can. And some of the things you learn are going to resonate. And some of the opportunities that you have are going to really make a lot of sense for you. And when they do, you follow them. Always follow them. And change is okay. Part of my advice to anybody coming up is to know that fear and uncertainty are a part of it. It is normal to feel afraid. It is normal to feel like you don't know how to do whatever you're doing. And that's okay. A smart person once told me that fear's always going to be with you. It's along for the ride. Just don't let it drive. Embrace that fear. Think about what the message might be, but think really carefully so you know if it's just holding you back or if it has something important to say, and then experiment and just keep experimenting. And it's okay to fail. If you haven't failed at anything, it might mean you're not experimenting or innovating. Even the smartest people fail. The most highly trained people fail. So it's okay to fail. Take what you learn out of it and try again. It's okay to find a new path. Keep going up that path and learn. That's how I picked my path. I experimented. I went after what resonated with me. I went after what gave me energy. What's the thing that makes you want to pop out of bed in the morning? And then you're going in the right direction.
Erin, I love that because I think it really resonates with a lot of people listening to this. That idea of finding what energizes you and being okay with pivoting, being okay with failing. I think a lot of times failure is something we don't put enough of a value on. And you can tell from your experiences that failure is part of the reason that you've been able to get where you are.
Oh, absolutely. And, it's okay to even sort of marinate in those failures. And I don't mean beat yourself up. I mean, really think about them and think about, what did you learn and why did you fail? And is it telling you that you should be going in a different direction? Or is it telling you that you needed to learn more to go in the direction you wanted? So failure is really instructive. And I think we should embrace it. I think it's okay to know it's going to happen.
When you were at The Nation, you talked a little bit about how you really restructured that organization. And the first thing that popped into my mind when I heard that is, wow, that takes some confidence to come into a position and to know that you can bring value in that way. Tell me a little bit about that experience. How did you build your confidence to get to that point? What were some of the challenges you faced doing that?
Sure. So the first thing, and the thing I want to stress, is that nobody does anything alone. And it's really important to build authentic relationships, to grow your network, to fill your network with people who really get you, because those people are going to grow with you and you're going to support each other. And when your confidence dips, those people are there to give you perspective that you don't always have when you're in it. So I built my network. I built and build allies in the companies where I work. I include people in the conversation so that we can bounce ideas off of each other. Ideas don't have to come top down. And quite frankly, if that's the only way that you accept ideas, you're limiting yourself. And so, pull people in and make them involved. Make sure that people understand the value in your goals. And then listen to people when they give you feedback, because it could be that your goal is right, but your path to it should be different. And that's great. The more feedback you get and the more opportunity you have to make a stronger result is incredible. And then what you're doing is you're bringing people along with you so that they want to support you. And there's nothing like community to create confidence. I think it's also really important to celebrate your wins. I don't know if you've ever noticed or if you've had this experience of, having a rough time. And so you update your resume. And when you update your resume, you feel so good, and part of feeling good about that is that you accomplished a hard task, right? Nobody likes to update their resume. But part of what makes you feel good is that you're taking stock of your accomplishments. And so I suggest that people don't wait for that big project, that big resume project. Start taking stock of your wins, big and small. Write them down. Do it daily. Do it weekly. Because the thing is that we are all achieving more than we realize, and we're all having a bigger impact than we know. And so make note of it, because it really does boost your confidence and it makes you feel good. And again, it goes back to that joy, what gets you out of bed in the morning. Well, when you feel really good about the work you're doing, you have that inner drive.
That is so powerful, to remember our wins along the way. I think so often we get bogged down, especially when we're thinking about failures, and maybe it's a time in your career where things aren't going so well. And it is really hard to remember all of the incredible things that you've accomplished. What, if you had to kind of look back on your career, what are some of your highlights? Is there something that really stands out to you as, I'm so proud that I did this, and this is really, something that I count as a huge win?
Oh, that's a really good question. Yes, but some of those things probably they might not be the things you expect. So I've definitely had big wins where I've, increased revenue by X%, or I've created a new revenue stream that had this incredibly powerful impact. And those things matter, and they matter a lot. But some of the things that I'm most proud of aren't about that. I have people who have worked with me for years and followed me from job to job. There's one person in particular that I hired out of college 19 years ago, and she has worked with me in some capacity for every year but one. I'm really proud of that, because what that tells me is that I did a good job, or I do a good job nurturing people's careers, opening doors for them, creating possibility, and creating community. And that's really important, because all of that matters so much. I am really, really proud of creating the Nation Fund for Independent Journalism. And I'm really proud of the Fellowship for the Future of Journalism, because creating things that are mission aligned and that matter to you, again, that's part of that thing that makes you want to hop out of bed. And it's also solving a problem and doing something that matters and doing something that can have impact on people's lives. And so I think that that is really important. I'm really excited about jumping into new opportunity and creating new things and taking the opportunity to, you can be entrepreneurial inside a company or outside. You know, you get to decide how you want to define that and how you want to create things. So when I was working with the Nation, I had the opportunity to be entrepreneurial inside a company, right? It gives you lots of support. Well, you know what? That was a great learning ground for what I'm trying to do now, which is to be entrepreneurial without that safety net. And I'm pretty excited for it.
I'm so excited to see what you have coming up. I'm sure it's going to be really just tremendous. As you continue to grow as a leader and as you mentored clearly a lot of people along the way, what did you find were the skills that were most helpful for you in developing your leadership and becoming a strong leader?
Yeah, this is another really important question. It is really important, again, to define your role broadly. I know I've said that, but it's so important. And to learn all you can. It is really important when you are nurturing talent to give them space and agency. Part of what gives people job satisfaction is feeling that they have impact. That means don't micromanage and trust people to behave like adults, right? Lay out a plan, make sure they understand the plan, and then let them raise questions and show up for them when they do. Communication is so important. Everybody should hone their communication skills. And communication is a really complex topic. So, you know, it would be several podcasts all to itself. But just to say that communication is a loop. So I could write the most impressive memo. I could be very, very proud of it. But if my audience doesn't understand what I'm trying to say, it's a failure. So make sure that that communication loop is effective, that you're putting a message out and that people are understanding the message as you intend it. Make sure that you understand the communication channels that you have at your disposal. You know, email is different than Slack, which is different than text, which is different than face-to-face. And they all have a role and they all have pros and cons. And you should be an expert at using all of them, because good communication matters. It's going to be the thing that might set you apart from your peers. I think if you don't know something, it's really important to ask. If you uncover a problem, it's important that you raise it up to the right person. If you can't meet a deadline, you need to let the stakeholders know, right? Problems should never be a surprise. This doesn't mean that you drop a problem on somebody else. It means you work through things to your ability. You make suggestions, you offer solutions, and you're prepared because you want to be the person that everybody knows that they can trust. And then you build your community. Build your community because, again, people, always people, matter.
And we've touched in this conversation so many times on community, and I think it really is so important. You've clearly developed mentorship relationships with a lot of folks over your career who have followed you from place to place, which I think is really a testament to your leadership. How has mentorship even in the sense of people mentoring you, played a role in your career development?
Having strong examples is really important. And I suggest that if you're in a place where you don't have those examples, you might not be in the right place. If you're in a place where, you feel unheard or uncomfortable, you might not be in the right room. And it's okay to take time, to use some of that energy, your energy, to find another room. But I've had extraordinary mentors. And sometimes people are, can be your mentor and they don't even know, they're leading by example and you're learning. A lot of what I learned is self-taught. I had a lot of experience of just having to figure it out on my own. When I worked for Spin Magazine, the person that I had 2 years of work experience, and the person that hired me abruptly quit. And there was this really big project that Spin cared a lot about, and its deadlines were looming. And so I went to the files and I pulled out the file with the heading for this project, and it was empty. Nothing had been done. There was no information on it anywhere. And that was left in my lap. And so I sat down and I figured out my options. We could create this project exactly as it was envisioned, but the timeline and how we got there would be different. We could tweak the project slightly and then the impact would be different. Or we could reimagine completely. And I laid out what that would entail. And then I went and got my allies and laid out my options to them. And then I went to the owner of the company and had my very first meeting with the owner of the company to tell this person that this project they cared about so much wasn't going to happen in the time or possibly the way that they had imagined. But I was prepared. I took ownership of it. I laid out all the options and suggested the one that I felt was best. And the meeting was great. So this thing that could have been horrible turned out to be terrific. And it turned out so well because I took responsibility. I didn't leave the problem at anybody's feet. And I had solutions. And I learned so much from that. It's important not to let people be surprised. Problems are going to come up. Mistakes are going to happen. Things aren't always going to go the way you want to go. But when people know that you care and that you're actively working to make things better, it opens up a lot of space.
I think it's so great. Well, first off, it's not great that happened to you. That sounds like a very stressful learning opportunity. But I think it's great that you highlight that experience, because I think we can agree that mentorship is important. And when you do have those role models to look up to, that is wonderful and helpful. But sometimes those aren't there. And sometimes you really are on this journey of teaching yourself what it means to be a good leader and trying to pick up those pieces. And that certainly does not mean that you won't be as successful. It's just a different path to learning.
Yeah, it is a different path. And I think that's important to stress too. If you're learning and you feel energized, you are on the right path. It doesn't exactly mean that how you got there, if it's different than somebody else, is wrong or that you have to worry about it. And I liked teaching myself. I felt really good about it. And I had to do it in a lot of areas and in a lot of jobs. That doesn't mean I didn't have great mentors. I mean, one of the things that a boss and someone that I respect and hold dear once told me that I appreciate so much is that he never lost any sleep over work. And he told me that one morning when I had found a problem and felt terrible that I hadn't found it earlier. So I was up all night. I was just consumed by this. How could I have not done this better? How could this problem have gone on without me knowing? And I was at work super early, and he walked in, and I pounced on him to confess, to tell him that I had discovered this error and that I was so sorry. And he listened to me, and he said, well, did anybody else figure this out? And I said, well, no. And he said, so you're the only one that realized, that we had a problem, and you have a solution for fixing it. And if you hadn't discovered it, nobody else would have. It would still be going on. So why did you lose sleep last night?
Wow. That's so true.
It's so true. And I think about that a lot. I think about that, when I feel like I'm not doing enough or I haven't done it right. You know what? I'm doing pretty well. I'm doing better than a lot of people. I'm finding things and doing things that other people haven't or they didn't yet. And that's pretty powerful. And it's a great reminder. And I really do. I thank him all the time, for teaching me this lesson, that we are enough. We are enough. We are competent and we are capable and we are doing a really good job. And mistakes are going to happen. Problems are going to come up. It's how we deal with them that matters.
And thinking back on your career when you were newer to the workforce, when you were just starting out in leadership, what is one piece of advice that you would tell your younger self or that you wish you would have heard earlier on?
I think it's really important to know your worth, to know what you bring to the table, and to understand your value. And that's not always easy in a culture that, that tells women that our roles are to make things easier, right? That we should avoid making waves or even a ripple. But knowing your worth, knowing when to make those waves, knowing when it's okay to say this position or this opportunity or this moment doesn't work and I need to switch it. I wish my younger self had known that earlier. And I know it now. For me, it was a journey. But if listening to this incredible podcast you're doing, if, people out there can learn this lesson earlier, I wish that for them.
Thank you so much, Erin, for joining us today. This was such a wonderful conversation.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And thanks for doing this. I really think that conversations like this are important.
To learn more about Erin's journey and to stay up to date with her new ventures, I would encourage you all to follow her on LinkedIn. You can find the link in the show notes. Thanks for tuning in to Lead Fearlessly, Strategies of Confident Women Leaders. If you've been inspired by today's episode, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with a friend who could use a confidence boost. Remember to subscribe so you won't miss out when we drop our next season. And if you found our conversations valuable, please leave us a 5-star review. Your support helps us continue to amplify the voices of incredible women leaders and inspire more fearless female trailblazers.